The baking fairy had been making the same cake for 399 years in a row. The color, size, and taste of the cake were exactly the same as in the past, without any change. But the queen had long grown tired of it. When Tinker Bell suggested making a magical cake for the queen, she asked the queen if she could challenge the baking fairy. The queen would be the judge, and only the winner would have the honor of making the cake for the queen's 400th birthday celebration. The queen agreed, and so, the first ever Fairy Valley baking contest began. The baking fairy's team went first. The baking fairy's eyes were like a ruler. She could precisely control the size and taste of the cake. Next up were Tinker Bell and her sisters. The baking contest started with a 1-hour countdown, and Tinker Bell quickly assigned tasks to her sisters. The baking fairy took out her family's heirloom cooking tools, while Tinker Bell's tools were the latest baking machines. The cake makers skillfully began to operate them. At Tinker Bell's command, the animal fairy directed the birds to bring in rice. It turned out that their flour was freshly ground. After 15 minutes of the contest, the water fairy and the wind fairy had already skillfully mixed the dough, and the flour fairy threw out cocoa seeds, producing smooth chocolate instantly. The baking fairy's team didn't stop either. The cake base had already been baked. On the other side, with the light fairy present, Tinker Bell's team didn't need an oven for baking, but the baking fairy's team finished the competition first. With only 1 minute left, the wind fairy quickly picked up the cake and skillfully shaped it. The other fairies began to make the final decorations on the cake. At that moment, Tinker Bell surprisingly picked up a welding machine. Time flew by quickly, and Tinker Bell's team finally decorated their cake in the last second. The baking fairy brought out the cake that had been the same for 400 years, and Tinker Bell's team also presented their contest cake. The queen tasted the baking fairy's cake and said it was as delicious as always. But when she saw Tinker Bell's cake, she was very surprised and said it was the most beautiful cake she had ever seen, and she loved it. Hearing the queen's praise, Tinker Bell and her sisters began to celebrate their victory early. But when the queen tasted it, she found it very bad. So, Tinker Bell's team ultimately lost the contest.